Hello to my Patreon supporters. I'd like to thank you once again for your financial support to help keep the blog going, and please enjoy this month's video. Hi, this is Susan Carlson, and welcome to my studio. And here is my studio tree. Now, if you read my blog post, Season of Light, you will be familiar that this is a tree that was one of those pre-lit wire trees that had gone bad, and it was on its way to the trash when I got this idea. I thought, hey, I work with scraps of fabric. I love scraps of fabric, and why not take and wrap the limbs? And so it's the limbs and the lights and everything is all wrapped. Now these are what I use. It's just strips. I just cut scraps of fabric in strips, but in the blog post, I showed how I wrapped those around defunct light strings, like these things right here. So here are the strings, and what I realized is that what I didn't show in the post was that strings of lights look different. And see how this is nice and heavy? This is a heavy one. If you do want to do this project, I would definitely say use the thick stuff, because look how thin this is. And this is going to be much more fun to wrap, right? So this is what I want you to use if you do this. If you are, obsessed with saving things from landfills, this is a great project for you. And people, sometimes enjoy this stuff too. People like my sister. Now, this I've taken and kind of elaborated on that whole idea. So here you can see the original string of lights. This is the original string with the little lights that I've wrapped individually to look like, lit lights with yellow fabric, right? But in this one, because my sister likes light bulbs, we have a strange family. So here I have collaged fabric over various light bulbs, some big ones, some small ones. There's, I think, 3 or 4 different sizes of bulbs here. And that's like with Mod Podge or some sort of, gloss medium or matte medium or something like that. And then I tied them on along the string. So I have this great, nice little long string of lights that she uses as a garland. Year round, we keep these things up all year. And as a little added extra for my sister, I took old labels, or tags, I guess I should say. I did a little stamping and I glued some stencils on top of them. And so this says, if you read it, it says shine going one way. And then if you reverse it, if it's hanging up, you look at the other side of it, and it says light going the other way. So you can take this whole wrapping idea and do all sorts of things. And in the blog post, I also showed you pictures of these balls that I'd wrapped. Instead of doing it as a garland, I had wrapped them up, and my intent was to, wound them up, I should say. And the intent was then to wrap the ball. And I did do that with this one. I got this started, at least. I got that far. So here now is that ball. And you can see that I've got all sorts of strings of fabric wrapped around. And instead of gluing them together, I tied them together. So there's these little bits of tied fabric kind of poking up, little scraps. And then I've started wrapping those lights themselves. And so it's going to make a real strange little porcupine sort of ball. And let me just show you here. I've got a couple things ready. I've got a string, or actually I should say I did have it, so hold on one sec. Well, it doesn't really matter. I'll just take any sort of I'm going to do yellow, right? So here, let me show you. I'm going to take my glue, my good old Aleene's Tacky Glue. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here at the base of that light. And then I'm going to start wrapping it around. Oops, just hold it in place for just a moment. And then I'm just going to wrap it right up the little light, kind of keeping a little pressure on it. And when I run out of the scrap, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right on the end. and then glue that down. And then I'm going to take another piece and I'm going to put a little glue on here. There we go. And then I'm going to continue wrapping to the top of the little point of the light. And then I'm going to spin it right back down, trim off the end when I get to the point where it's ready, where everything's covered. And I take it back down so you don't see the point of the light bulb. But you know, this is an imperfect project, so don't worry too much about it. And one more of those little light quills are done. And in the end, it's going to look kind of fun. I'll wrap, continue wrapping up here, and maybe I'll snip the plug off and make a little, loop at the top or something like I did. And that's, you can see that in the blog post too, how I did that. And then, as I was getting ready to do this, I realized I had a couple more little scrappy things to show you. So here on my tree, I have what I call solstice spirits. So it's kind of for that time of year. The winter solstice is the shortest day of the year, longest night of the year. And this is taking scraps of fabric. So here now I've cut a lace in kind of a square. Oh, and we have my helper has just joined me here. So got my square, and then I take a, this one is a felted ball, but you can also take like a little wooden bead, and I wrap it around and cinch it like a little neck. And then I tie it with different strings and yarns. And you can also use other sorts of scraps. Maybe you don't have just strings and yarns. But you can also use scraps like this. I've put things like this. This is some more lacy fabrics and stuff. And I could wrap that around and, to have all sorts of things hanging off of it. And when I'm done with the little decorating part, I take another couple beads. I take wire, this is just some beading wire, and I thread it through the top and then thread it up through the beads and make my loop. And then I can hang them. I also have done not just lace like that, but also like a printed chiffon is also kind of fun. And I made little solstice spirit cards just so people, people would know what these things are. But if they want to see it as a tassel or something, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But it's another fun little thing you can do with your scraps. And then one last thing up here, you may have noticed I have this great tree topper on top of my studio tree. And this was made by a student and friend of mine, Barb Kramer. And she took, this was a surprise that she did for me one year. And she took my turtle pattern and reduced it in size and then made these tree toppers for friends. And I thought this was just, I loved getting it. It was a wonderful gift. And of course, you've got all these great little, she used all sorts of little scraps. I mean, just think how small some of these things are. You'll never throw a scrap away again. And it was the absolute perfect topper for my wrapped scrap tree. So, hope that gives you a few ideas, and have fun.